Are you a trauma survivor? I'm guessing yes, because most everybody has had traumatic experiences and has to deal with the aftermath of that. And what I want to offer in this video are some tips on how to heal past trauma using meditation. Before I get into that, just want to say this is Eddie with a Mindful Emergence, where we offer simple steps for spiritual integration using mindfulness, movement, and breathing practices. So before I actually get into the tips, what I'd like to do is give you a little bit about my own past history because it's relevant. Between the ages of 18 and 22, I was engaged in active addiction. And I'm not going to go into a lot of details about what I used, it's not important. But what is important is that I was eventually arrested on a narcotics charge, and I ended up in a maximum security prison in upstate New York called Attica. Well, if you've ever heard of Attica, it's probably because you know that in 1971, September, there was an uprising. And the uprising lasted 5 days. And at the end of that uprising, the state of New York sent in armed personnel with guns blazing, killing 39 people. There were a total of 43 deaths as a result of that uprising. I was there. I was there in September of 1971. After spending 2 years in prison, I got out, and for several decades, I lived with the impact of this trauma without really understanding what kind of effect it had on me. And I remained in active addiction, even though I didn't get back into heroin and needles and all that I had before I was incarcerated. I continued using. And what was really frustrating for me is that most of the time I would do okay. I held down a job, I raised a family, I started meditating. I had started doing yoga inside prison. So here I am doing these practices like meditation and yoga. I was eating really healthy. I was an athlete. I was running. I was doing really well most of the time. But then on occasion, what would happen was I would go off the tracks and I was out of control. And I put myself at risk doing that. And I didn't understand why until I went to treatment. And it was pointed out to me the impact of trauma, and I was able to connect the dots and understand why I had these problems. And there's a long story. I've done videos on this, interviews on this, but what I want to talk about now is how I've used meditation to work with that and how you can too. So, one of the things that you can do with meditation to help with trauma is to help ground yourself. Meditation can help us develop a different relationship with our body. Trauma is stored in the body. And when we are triggered or activated, it's very, very difficult to deal with that, because typically what happens is we get activated into either fight or flight response, severe anxiety. I had anxiety attacks that would last for hours. So these kind of panic attacks and this kind of experience as a result of events that are happening are very, very hard to deal with. And you're in this state of fight or flight. The other response to trauma sometimes is freeze, and we get locked down, we go numb, and we can be in a state of depression. So when this happens, we're very much dissociated from our body, and we're unable to really know what's going on because we're in this state of fight, flight, or freeze. What meditation can do is help us develop a different relationship with our body. So what we can do is notice, for example, that we're sitting. Like right now, I'm in a chair, and I can notice my feet on the floor. I can feel my back and my bottom pressed against the chair. I have my arms my hands and arms on the arms of the chair. And then I can feel myself breathe. I can notice the inhale and the exhale in my belly. I could notice it in my nostrils, on my upper lip. If I'm sitting and not talking, I can feel my lips pressed together. If my eyes are closed, I can notice that sensation. So what I can do is I can tune into my body in a way that's not terrifying. And I can start developing a relationship with the sensations in my body. So I can notice, for example, the pressure on my feet. And maybe I'm better able to pause and tune in and notice discomfort, whether it's an emotion like anxiety or fear or sadness or any kind of physical pain, anything that's going on, I'm able to tune in and notice. And I can do practices to ground myself, either whether I'm sitting or maybe walking. I can do walking meditation, feeling myself connected to the earth, whether it's out in the woods, going for a walk in nature, which of course can be incredibly nurturing, or just walking from my car into a store or moving around the room. So these kinds of practices can connect us with our body in a way that's friendly and curious and grounding. So that's one way that meditation can help. Another thing meditation can do is give us the opportunity to observe our thoughts, to be able to create a little bit of what we call dual awareness, where I can put my attention on my breath, breathing in, breathing out. And of course, what happens is thoughts arise. And most of the time, it's just random nonsense. It's stuff about the past, it's about the future, but I can observe how my mind works. I can observe the stories I tell myself about what's happening, particularly stories that might keep me stuck in some type of compulsive behavior. Perhaps I can create enough space so I can notice, wow, I'm kind of crazy right now. And know that these are just thoughts, they're just stories. We don't have to believe all the stuff that's in our head. Okay? We don't have to. But what our pattern is we tend to do that. We tend to get caught up in these stories and spin out. And when we really get stuck in obsessive thinking, it can really take us into a dark place, into a deep hole that's hard to get out of. So meditation helps ground us, get us in our body in a friendly way, and be able to help us look at how our mind works, what the patterns of our thinking are, to be able to stop and maybe, like watching ourselves on TV, when we start having crazy thoughts, go, wow, isn't that interesting? Look where my mind is going. I don't have to believe those thoughts. So those are two things that we can do. So another thing that we can do is practice self-compassion. So I teach out of the Buddhist tradition, where the Buddhists said that the practice is a combination of wisdom and compassion. So the wisdom is to be able to notice what's happening in our body, noticing what's happening in our mind, notice our surroundings, and really be able to see how we're responding to them. The compassion piece is the ability to meet our own suffering with a certain amount of strength, to be able to pause and go, I'm really struggling right now. I'm having a hard time. I'm caught in anxiety or fear, or I'm really trapped in this sense of sadness. And recognize we're not alone. A lot of times when we struggle, we think we're the only person on the planet going through this. We must be a freak. There's something wrong with us. No, there's nothing wrong with us. We're just having an experience of being a human being that's not uncommon to pretty much everybody. Okay? So we can notice this is what's happening. I'm not alone. This is just part of being a human. And then the key is bringing self-care into the picture and asking ourselves, What can we do in this moment to find balance? So, in a situation, it may be that we need to move our body. We may need to go for a walk, or maybe we need to rest. Maybe a hot bath, maybe some journaling, maybe talking to somebody, picking up the phone, or sharing our own pain with someone else, or maybe getting away from people and having alone time. So it depends on the situation. It's not always going to be the same for each of us. It's not going to be the same for ourselves. In one situation, I might need to go for a walk. In another, I might need to lie down and take a rest. So it's learning how we can do self-care. And there's another practice that has existed since the time of the Buddha. It's called loving kindness practice. And this is a beautiful practice. It's often referred to in its Sanskrit term, which is metta, M-E-T-T-A. And loving kindness practice is taking on some phrases and repeating them for ourselves, to ourselves, like a mantra. And you can think of it as a prayer. So when we're struggling, we can pause and say, may I be happy. May I be at ease. May I be peaceful. May I be happy. May I be ease. May I be peaceful. Whatever those phrases are, we get to pick for ourselves. And it's like bathing ourselves in this kind of loving kindness practice, giving ourselves some self-care with these kind words that can help us slow down and maybe step out of the difficulty and the suffering. So this is a way to help work with past trauma, because this trauma can show up in different ways. We don't have to be a victim of past trauma. It's very, very difficult. And you know what? I recommend doing other practices as well. I've done EMDR. I've done somatic experiencing. People have found value in hypnotherapy. There are a lot of ways to work with it. But meditation is one of those that I think you might find to be very helpful. If you want more information, you can go to our website, amindfulemergence.com. On our YouTube channel, we've got a lot of videos about self-care and about trauma. If you like this video, go ahead and hit the like button. Make a comment. Tell us what kind of other videos you would like, or give us feedback on this. And of course, if you want to continue to see videos, we post every Monday and Thursday. So go ahead and subscribe and hit that notification bell. And thanks for listening.